Hi, welcome back to another video. Well, the thing that the world has been most afraid of has happened, and the Israeli military has now invaded Rafah. This is a really dark day. But first, let's back up to what happened on Monday. So, after a night of really intense Israeli airstrikes, people in Rafah, in the eastern half of Rafah, woke up to leaflets dropped by the Israeli military telling them to immediately evacuate because they were about to be invaded. And these people are pushed all the way south. They've already been displaced numerous times. Rafah was supposed to be a safe zone, and they have been bombed every night for 2 straight months. So when they're told, oh, move to this other safe zone, they already know the reality and that there is nowhere safe for them to go. But where does the Israeli military direct them to go? They direct them to go to the western half of Khan Yunis city, and Khan Yunis has been completely leveled. There's nothing there but rubble. The only thing there is just concrete and destruction. There's nowhere for refugees to set up tents. There's absolutely no infrastructure whatsoever. And then the other place they were told to go is a place called Al Mawasi. And Al Mawasi is nothing but sand. There's nothing there either except for crowded refugee tents. There's no room for another 100,000 people to set up tents there. There's no food, there's no water, there's no bathrooms. So this order in itself is genocidal. And while the Israeli military likes to congratulate themselves that they give evacuation orders, the fact is that people don't have to move. If they stay where they're at, the military does not have free rein to attack civilians. Although, of course, that's what they've been doing throughout the past 7 months. And today is 7 months exactly since October 7th. And now this is the terrifying final stage of the genocide and ethnic cleansing campaign. So people yesterday were absolutely in a panic, just so distraught, so terrified. And then a few hours later, the announcement comes that Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire deal. And people were suddenly just overjoyed. People were in the streets yelling and dancing and honking and just celebrating everywhere. They were overjoyed. They thought, finally, this is over. And when I saw this, my heart just kind of clenched up because I didn't believe it. And sadly, I was right. Because a few hours after that, we started getting indications that Israel was not going to agree to this deal. So, I mean, imagine the emotional roller coaster these poor people are on after everything they've been through, finally thinking it's over, and then, no, it's about to get so much worse. So, basically, in the negotiations, Israel and Hamas were very far apart on a couple of key points. The main one being that Hamas wanted an end to the war. They wanted a permanent ceasefire. And Israel wanted all of their people back and then to just keep on genociding. But Hamas actually agreed to the proposal. They were willing to give up some of their key demands in order to save their people. And this really exposed what I and many others have been saying about the Israelis this entire time, is that the Israeli government doesn't want the hostages. They're willing to sacrifice their own citizens so that they can keep the genocide going. And the Israeli public, they want their people home. So they are furious. They're out on the streets. They're calling for Netanyahu's head. They threaten to literally burn the country down. So Netanyahu is under a lot of pressure, but the reality is for him, when this war ends, he's out of power. And that's his main concern, not his people. And not only that, that getting their hostages back would be very problematic. It was very problematic for them last time to get people back. Now, when the hostages were released during the temporary ceasefire that we had back in the fall, we saw people coming out saying that they had been well treated by their captors, but that they were in constant danger from Israeli bombs. So now, 7 months in, where they're suffering everything that everyone else is suffering in Gaza, the carpet bombing, the starvation, can imagine what they're going to say when they get out and how bad that would look for Netanyahu. So the IDF went ahead and said no to the deal and invaded Rafah. So I had kind of expected, judging on what they usually do, I'm thinking to myself, well, they're probably just going to go for the hospitals, right? That's what they seem to like to get the most. But Rafah's a little bit different. Since Rafah is the border crossing, the first thing the Israelis did was take over the border and shut it down and stop all aid from going in. And just a few days ago, they closed the land crossing from Israel. The way it was reported in the Western media said that the Hamas had attacked the aid crossing, and that's why it had to be closed. But the reality is that the IDF was a few kilometers away, gathering, getting ready to invade Rafah, and they were struck by the resistance quite successfully. And in retaliation, they shut down the aid coming in from that crossing. And now they have taken the Rafah crossing, which is the main way that aid gets into Gaza. Gaza's already experiencing famine. They have now cut off all food, all medical supplies, all fuel getting into the Gaza Strip. So last night there was really, really heavy bombing in Rafah. And while I haven't heard this reported from the local media, my contacts on the ground are telling me that the Israelis actually used white phosphorus in one of the neighborhoods in Rafah. That in itself is a war crime. White phosphorus will burn you to the bone. It's a horrible death. And even the people that are horrifically injured, there's now no medical supplies. The field hospitals are going to run out of fuel very quickly. They know that their time is almost up, and they are trying to kill as many people as quickly as they can before the world puts a stop to it. And this is just the most terrifying thing. Using white phosphorus in the most densely packed place on the planet. So, what's next? Well, clearly Israel is trying to implement a final solution on the last remaining concentration of civilians in Gaza. We've got to hope that this is stopped. Biden could stop this at any point. He could have stopped this at any point. He even said himself, don't go into Rafah. Rafah is a red line. And then he walked it back in the next sentence and said, oh, I'll never abandon Israel. And what a crazy position morally to blindly support anyone, no matter what horrors they do. It's just unfathomable. But Biden is so committed to Israel, he's willing to throw the entire country to Trump, ignore his own population and what they want, ignore human rights law, ignore American law, and let Israel do whatever the hell they want. So, well, any point Biden could stop it. He could stop it now. He always said this was his red line. Will he? Well, to try to pressure them, earlier in the week, he did suspend a final shipment of ammunition. But he's already given them everything they wanted. He just sent them billions in weapons and money. Everything they need to do what he said not to do. I mean, who's client state here? Biden could grow a pair, but I wouldn't hold my breath. At this point, the people have to apply pressure. We've got to hope that maybe Netanyahu is trying to save face and appease his far-right coalition by saying, okay, see, I went into Rafah. I got every place in Gaza. And maybe then he'll agree to a ceasefire. The entire international community has joined to say, please don't do this. And if they continue on in Rafah, everything, all the horrors of the past 7 months would be a picnic compared to what we could be about to see unfold. So we've got to keep the pressure on. Everybody get out in the streets, protest, speak out. Everybody's got to keep the pressure on here. All eyes on Rafah, people. Hang in there.